She never saw me watching. If she had, maybe she wouldn't have pinned my 14-year-old daughter against the cold iron gate of our own home like a criminal. Maybe she would have thought twice before jabbing her finger into Ava's chest, while Beacon, my daughter's service dog, whined helplessly at her side. But Patricia Holloway, the neighborhood's self-appointed enforcer of rules, wasn't the type to think twice. Her voice, sharp and scolding, sliced through the calm evening air as she growled, "No dogs allowed in common areas. I don't care what your father told you." Ava stood frozen, the metal gate pressing into her spine, her hands trembling as she clung to Beacon's vest. She had just come back from a peaceful evening walk around the block, something we encouraged to help her regulate stress and maintain some independence despite her epilepsy. But none of that mattered to Mrs. Holloway. Not the vest marked with a Department of Justice ID. Not Ava's condition. Not the fact that Beacon was trained to detect her seizures before they started. Training that had saved her life multiple times. No. All Patricia saw was a teenage girl who, in her eyes, didn't belong. I had just pulled into the driveway after a 14-hour day on duty, bone-tired, ready for a shower, and maybe a few moments of peace. But as I sat in the car, engine idling, I noticed the confrontation. My daughter shaking, terrified. Patricia, looming over her, finger wagging, voice rising. Neighbors nearby stood frozen, watching but saying nothing. Some looked concerned, but no one stepped in. It was like a nightmare unfolding in slow motion, except this was real. I couldn't feel the fatigue anymore, only rage. Deep, cold, focused rage that built with every second I saw Patricia Holloway press harder into my child, her words echoing like poison in the air. "Your fake dog vest from the internet doesn't beat our rules. I've been a paralegal for 23 years. That mutt doesn't belong here." As I walked up, my steps quiet but certain, I heard Ava's soft, pleading voice say, "Please. He's a service dog. The law says—" And then Patricia cut her off, pushing harder. That was enough. I had heard more than I needed to. My voice came low, controlled, dangerous, the kind of tone my officers knew meant someone was in serious trouble. "Take your hands off my daughter." Patricia spun around, clearly not expecting anyone, especially not me. At first, her face registered surprise. Then a smug little smile crept in as she recognized me, or thought she did. To her, I was just Thomas Riley, the quiet guy in the corner house who never showed up to HOA meetings, the government worker who kept to himself. That's all she ever saw. "Well, Mr. Riley, good timing," she began, dismissive as ever. "I was just explaining to your daughter that emotional support animals aren't protected under HOA rules. You should have read the bylaws." "Patricia," I interrupted, deliberately using her first name. "You have 3 seconds to step away from my daughter before I arrest you for physically assaulting a minor and violating the Americans with Disabilities Act." She blinked, confused, then let out a half laugh, half snort. "Arrest me? You? On what grounds?" I reached up, slid off my jacket, and let the weight of my authority speak for itself. My badge gleamed under the porch light, the grip of my sidearm holstered at my side. "Assistant Commissioner Riley, Metropolitan Police Department, and I just witnessed you put your hands on my disabled child." The silence that followed hit like a thunderclap. Gasps from the neighbors. Patricia's face drained of color. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She stumbled backward a step, her confidence crumbling. Ava stood still, tears streaking her face. Beacon pressed close to her leg, sensing the shift in the air. I stepped forward, eyes locked on the woman who had made my daughter feel small in her own neighborhood. "That vest you mocked? It's registered with the Department of Justice. Beacon has over 1,500 hours of training. He's saved Ava's life 3 times. He's not an accessory. He's a medical necessity." Neighbors who had stayed silent until then finally began murmuring. Discomfort gave way to realization. Patricia took a shaky step back. I didn't know you were. That shouldn't matter, I cut in, voice hard as stone. What should matter is that you broke federal law and traumatized a child with a medical condition. You're lucky all I'm doing tonight is warning you. I turned to Mrs. Patel, who had stepped outside, clearly shaken by what she had witnessed. Would you please help Ava inside? Then to Mr. Guzman, who had been standing by with his phone in hand. You've been recording? Good. I'll need that for my report. Patricia's composure shattered completely when I said, report. She started to speak again, but I raised a hand to stop her. I've been keeping track of every letter, every petty complaint, every incident where you targeted my daughter. This isn't your first strike, Patricia. It's your last. As Ava was led inside, I could still hear Patricia stammering behind me. But I didn't turn back. I had a daughter to protect, and that came before everything else. Later that night, Ava sat curled on the couch, Beacon's head resting on her lap like a warm, steady heartbeat. She still trembled slightly, her face pale, her hands wrapped tightly around a mug of tea Mrs. Patel had kindly prepared. I sat beside her, taking in the red mark on her shoulder, the one left by a woman who thought she was above the law. Ava looked up at me, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm sorry, Dad. I was just walking Beacon like always. You have nothing to be sorry for, I said gently, brushing a lock of hair from her forehead. What she did was wrong, and she'll answer for it. Ava looked at me with wide, tired eyes. Why does she hate us so much? We never did anything to her. I exhaled, my heart heavy. Some people see what they don't understand and turn it into a threat. Your epilepsy, Beacon. To her, it's a reminder that life isn't perfect, that scares her, and fear makes people cruel. That's a stupid reason to be mean, she said, her voice more firm. I smiled, touched by her clarity despite the pain. Yes, sweetheart, it really is. By morning, I had made my calls, reports filed, statements gathered. Patricia Holloway was about to learn that being the self-declared queen of a cul-de-sac didn't put her above the law. 3 days later, the HOA board called an emergency meeting. The room filled quickly. Curious neighbors, some uneasy, others outraged. I noticed several people wearing purple ribbons for epilepsy awareness. Small gestures but powerful. Douglas Wilson, the HOA chairman, stood at the front, his usual calm replaced by something sharper. Let's make this clear, he began, voice echoing through the room. What happened to Ava Riley and her service animal is unacceptable. It violates not only our HOA values, but state and federal protections. He turned, eyes fixed on Patricia, who sat in the front row, arms crossed, face unreadable. Based on witness accounts, legal review, and video evidence, the board has reached a unanimous decision. The room held its breath. Effective immediately, Patricia Holloway is removed from her role as HOA president. Additionally, the board will cooperate fully with any legal action pursued by the Riley family. Whispers swept the room like wind through dry leaves. But Wilson wasn't finished. We are also mandating disability law training for all current board members, and we're forming a new accessibility committee, which we hope Ava will consider joining when she feels ready. For the first time in days, I saw a flicker of pride in Ava's eyes. She sat straighter. She belonged here, and now the community was finally beginning to acknowledge it. After the meeting, neighbors approached with apologies, kind words, even quiet guilt. Mr. Guzman handed me a flash drive containing his security footage, which, unbeknownst to me, captured not just this incident, but 6 others. 6 times Patricia had confronted Ava when I wasn't around. The evidence was overwhelming, and this time, she wouldn't be able to slither away behind legal jargon or playground politics. Justice was finally at our doorstep, and this time we were ready to open the door. A month passed, and with it came changes that no one could have predicted. The gravel paths that once rattled Ava's wheelchair-bound friend's crutches were now paved smoothly, welcoming and inclusive. Ava had taken her place on the newly formed Accessibility Committee with a quiet determination that humbled me more than words ever could. She wasn't driven by revenge or bitterness. She was driven by something deeper, by the belief that no one else should ever feel like they don't belong. I watched her one sunny afternoon walking alongside Caroline, a sweet 9-year-old girl who had just moved into the blue house on Maple Court. Caroline used forearm crutches because of her cerebral palsy, but the smile she wore as she chatted with Ava made it clear she had already found a kindred spirit. Beacon trotted loyally beside them, his vest clean, polished, and unmistakably official. The very same path where Ava had once been cornered now served as a bridge between past and progress, pain and possibility. And then a car pulled up, a sleek, silver sedan that we all recognized. My chest tightened instantly. Patricia Holloway. She hadn't been seen much since her public removal. Most said she'd been avoiding neighborhood events, sinking into the background like a shadow. But today, she pulled up beside the walking path, her window rolling down slowly. "Excuse me," she called out, her voice missing the usual condescension. Ava turned toward her, guarded but calm. "Yes, Mrs. Holloway," she replied, her tone even. I had instinctively begun walking toward them from a distance, prepared to intervene if needed, but something told me not to rush this moment. Patricia didn't raise her voice. She didn't scowl. She looked tired, softer somehow, like someone who had been forced to look in the mirror and didn't entirely like what she saw. "I owe you an apology," she said. "Not just for that day, for everything before it. All of it." Ava didn't respond right away. She waited, watching, listening. "I've been attending those disability awareness classes the board mandated. And I've also recently been diagnosed with early onset Parkinson's." The words seemed to physically weigh down her shoulders. "In a few years I may need help too. Help I never imagined I'd require." There was a shift in Ava's expression. Not forgiveness, not yet, but empathy. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said quietly. Patricia nodded and then looked toward Caroline, who stood silently beside Ava, slightly confused but curious. "Is this your friend?" she asked. "Yes," Ava replied. "Caroline just moved in." To our collective surprise, Patricia offered a genuine, if small, smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood, Caroline. You've already met our best resident." Ava's cheeks flushed faintly at the compliment, but she didn't let it distract her. Patricia glanced down at the newly paved path and added, "The path looks much better now. The committee's doing good work." And with that, she drove off slowly, leaving the girls in stunned silence. That evening, Ava told me about the exchange. "Do you think she's really changed?" she asked. I considered it carefully. "Sometimes," I said, "people need to go through something difficult themselves to finally understand the pain they've caused others. Life has a way of humbling us." Ava looked thoughtful. "It's weird. I'm still mad about what she did, but I'm also kind of glad she might get it now." I nodded. "It's okay to feel both." 6 months after that awful night by the gate, our community came together for something remarkable. The ribbon-cutting ceremony for the county's first accessible playground. The entire neighborhood turned out. Even families from nearby areas came to see what our community had built, not just physically, but culturally. A new spirit pulsed through the place. People who once stood silent were now proud allies. Ava was asked to give a short speech. She stood before the crowd, Beacon calmly at her side, his vest now worn from use, but worn with pride. Inclusion isn't about pity, Ava said, her voice strong. It's about respect. It's about recognizing that differences aren't barriers, they're bridges. Different doesn't mean less. It means we've taken different paths to the same place, belonging. Her words drew quiet tears from many in the crowd. But as people turned to head toward the food tables and celebration, I noticed a familiar figure standing alone near the playground's edge. Patricia Holloway. Her hand trembled slightly as she tucked her hair behind her ear, a telltale sign of her condition. Her eyes watched the children play, the parents laugh, the community she had once tried to control now thriving without her. Ava noticed her too. For a moment, I thought Ava might walk away, that she would choose distance. But instead, she approached her slowly, Beacon trailing just behind. "Would you like to join us for some lemonade, Mrs. Holloway?" Ava asked. Patricia blinked. "After everything I did, why would you want me there?" Ava adjusted Beacon's vest, something she did when she was choosing her words carefully. Because holding on to anger is exhausting, and because someday you might need someone to show you kindness when you're struggling. Consider this practice, for both of us. There was a long pause. Then something cracked in Patricia's expression, a hardness that finally gave way. "I'd like that," she said. "Thank you." They walked together to the refreshments, quietly, almost tenderly. I stayed behind, heart swollen. Ava had every reason to stay angry, but she chose something stronger. She chose grace. She chose to be the light that her younger self would have needed in those darkest moments. The gate where Ava was once pinned had become something of a neighborhood art project. It now stood bright with colorful handprints, a symbol of healing and unity. Among them were two prints side by side, one small and familiar, Ava's. The other, older, belonging to the woman who had once made that gate a site of fear. Beneath them, in careful painted letters, the phrase Ava had suggested, "Different paths, same community." One morning, not long after, I found Ava sitting on our porch, sketchbook open, Beacon snoring lazily at her feet. "What are you working on now?" I asked. She held it up. "A buddy system," she said, "for new kids with disabilities who move into the neighborhood, so they always have someone who gets it." I smiled, floored again by the strength wrapped in her soft voice. "Mrs. Holloway is helping," Ava added, almost offhandedly. "She's actually really good at organizing things." I raised an eyebrow, but tried not to show my surprise. "How does that feel, working with her?" Ava thought about it for a beat. "Strange, but also kind of right. Her hands shake more now. Yesterday she couldn't open her water bottle during the meeting. I opened it for her, and nobody made a big deal about it. That's how it should be. Quiet help, no spotlight." In that moment, watching my daughter not just lead but uplift even those who had wronged her, I felt something I hadn't in years, a deep, anchoring peace. She had transformed pain into purpose, resentment into resilience. While I had sought justice through enforcement, she had uncovered a deeper truth. Real justice doesn't just fix rules, it heals hearts. And the woman who had once reduced Ava to tears was now learning what community truly meant, side by side with the very person she had hurt most. Not because Ava forgot the pain, but because she remembered her own humanity. And in that, she helped restore someone else's. That is how communities are rebuilt, not just by policy or law, but by compassion, quiet courage, and the hands of those once harmed reaching out, not in surrender, but in strength.